Hi everyone. Today we're going to debunk the truth. What if Alexander the Great lived to 80? Picture this. It's June 323 BCE. Babylon, the greatest conqueror the world has ever known, lies still. But not dead. The fever breaks. The gasping stops. The physicians trembling whisper, "He lives." You might not believe the story, but this is always a warning not to be taken lightly. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you really like what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it? Now listen and leave your comments, and let's get started. History remembers Alexander dying young, just 32, at the height of his conquests. His empire, stretched across 3 continents, collapsed almost instantly. But what if it didn't? In this timeline, Alexander survives. The fever breaks after days of delirium, and the Macedonian court, stunned, begins to obey once more. The succession crisis postponed. The wars of the Diadochi, the civil wars that shattered his legacy, never begin. Because the king still breathes and commands. He names no regent because he needs none. Instead, Alexander sets about reshaping his court. He dismisses unreliable satraps, restores loyalty among Persian nobles, and makes it very clear this empire is no accident of force. It is by design. He begins grooming a true heir, not from politics, but from purpose. His infant son, Alexander, therefore, is given the attention of philosophers, warriors, astronomers. A new Aristotle is summoned. Education, not ambition, becomes the boy's weapon. Meanwhile, Alexander pushes administrative reform. He creates a new council, not of Macedonian generals alone, but of Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, and Indians. A multicultural elite loyal only to him. But it's not all peace. The army, still restless from years of campaigning, grumbles. They want to go home. But home no longer exists. Not to Alexander. To him home is the world, and he makes them choose serve me, or fade into history, and most of them even unwillingly choose to serve. The surviving generals, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Antigonus, become governors, not kings. Their ambitions are kept in check by Alexander's presence. No wars of succession, no fragments of empire, no chaos. Instead, Babylon becomes the true capital of the world. Not Athens, not Rome, not Alexandria, Babylon. From there, Alexander sends envoys deeper into India. He opens new trade routes south toward Arabia. He orders ships built not for conquest, but for knowledge. Astronomy, geography. Medicine as curiosity becomes the engine of empire. This isn't the story of a conqueror cut short. This is the second act of a ruler reborn. And the world isn't ready. The fever is gone. The ambition stronger than ever. Alexander, the man once content with Darius's throne, now eyes the edge of the map. He no longer speaks of empire. He speaks of eternity. And he begins with Arabia. By 321 BCE, Alexander launches a campaign across the Arabian Peninsula. But this time, it's not just military. It's logistical genius. Supply lines stretch from Babylon to the southern seas. Harbors are built. Desert routes mapped. His aim, to encircle the known world from the Indus to the Nile, from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea. Arabia falls not in a blaze of battles, but through alliances, intimidation, and calculated integration. Local chieftains are brought into his court. married into nobility, and absorbed into the vast Hellenic Persian world. Then comes India. Alexander had turned back at the Hyphasis River when his army revolted. But now, with a new generation of loyal soldiers and no dissenting generals, he returns. And this time, he doesn't stop. He crosses the Ganges. Kingdoms that once whispered tales of the Macedonian demon now face his banners rising on their soil. Cities fall, some willingly, some not. Alexander studies their philosophy. He debates Brahmins. He honors their gods and builds temples beside them, not as a conqueror, as a world binder. He integrates Sanskrit into his schools. He issues imperial edicts in Greek, Aramaic, and now Prakrit. The cities he founds in the Gangetic plain, they don't bear his name alone. They honor Shiva, Vishnu, the river, the land. It is no longer Hellenization. It is synthesis. From there, he turns his gaze to the north. Bactria becomes a cultural capital. Sogdiana becomes a military hub. And then, whispers arrive from the east. Tsin, a vast land ruled by legalist warlords. A land of walls and bronze and silent terracotta armies. Alexander's eyes narrow. The edge of the world. Not anymore. He begins to assemble a diplomatic mission, not an invasion. He wants to see what lies beyond the known. By 310 BCE, scouts and philosophers ride east, across the Silk Road, toward China. There, they record, observe, trade, and report back to Babylon. What Alexander learns changes him. By 50, Alexander has become more than a king. He is an idea. A man who no longer believes the world must be ruled by the sword, but by vision. He's still ruthless, but now every conquest builds not walls, but bridges. And his empire, it stretches from Carthage to Calcutta, from the edge of the Nile to the mouth of the Yangtze. A world without parallel, a world where the Silk Road is not a line between civilizations. At the spine of one, and in this world, Rome isn't rising. It's watching, quietly, waiting. It is the year 300 BCE. Alexander is 56. And the world speaks in many tongues, but listens to one ruler. He no longer rides into battle. He rides in processions, draped in Persian robes, crowned with a laurel, accompanied by Indian philosophers, Greek poets, and Egyptian priests, a living god. No, not yet, but something more than mortal, something enduring. By now, the empire has shape, not just lands, but laws, not just armies, but institutions. Alexander no longer builds cities by the sword. He builds foundations, cities like Alexandria in Arachosia, Antiochia on the Indus, and Persepolis II. Rise places where a marketplace sells Indian silk, Greek amphorae, and Babylonian star charts side by side. Education becomes imperial currency. All boys Persian, Greek, Egyptian, and now Indian study. Homer, mathematics, natural philosophy. They memorize not just war stories, but planetary alignments. They chant the names of gods from every border. Alexander's greatest innovation, the Imperial Assembly, a rotating council held annually in Babylon, bringing delegates from every province. Macedonians debate Persians. Nubians consult with Sogdians. Disagreements are many, but in disagreement, Alexander sees strength. It is not a democracy, but it is no longer a tyranny. And intermarriage becomes policy. His own wives, Roxana, of Bactria, Parysatis of Persia, and now a noblewoman from Pataliputra stand with him at official ceremonies. Children of different bloodlines are raised together in imperial academies. This is no longer empire by sword. It is empire by culture. The result, a fusion so powerful that Greek ceases to be foreign. It becomes the bridge between languages. A merchant in Tyre trades with a scholar from the Ganges. In Greek, an astronomer in Memphis corresponds with a mathematician in Persepolis. In Greek, but it is not dominance, it is shared identity. Temples rise with Doric columns and lotus carvings. Theater plays adapt Indian epics into Greek tragedies. Philosophy absorbs Zoroastrian dualism and Hindu cosmology. And at the center of it all, Alexander, the eternal strategos, the philosopher king, the man who rewrote what a ruler could be. Yet even now, he is not content. He commissions ships to explore the African coast beyond Nubia. He orders libraries to copy every known work regardless of language or origin. He funds expeditions into Siberia, Tibet, and the Caspian Sea. His empire is not just land. It is knowledge, a living organism. And yet, even as his vision spread, something begins to shift beneath the surface. You see, not all cultures want to be fused. Not all people want one identity, even if it's glorious, even if it's peaceful. There are whispers of rebellion, of longing for the old ways, of sovereignty. But Alexander doesn't hear them, or if he does, he believes he can fix it, because by now, he doesn't just rule, he defines the world. And for the moment, the world lets him. The East is secure, the Silk Road hums, the Nile flows through marble cities. Temples rise in Babylon like dreams turned to stone. But Alexander looks west. He is 67. His beard is white, his body weaker, but his mind sharper than ever. Rome is growing, small and unpolished, ambitious. A republic, a different model. Power, not in one man, but in many. That alone makes it dangerous. Alexander watches carefully. He sends ambassadors, offers trade, praises Roman discipline, and studies their flaws. They value freedom, but only for Romans. They conquer, but call it defense. Alexander sees himself in them, but without vision. He knows one day they will threaten his order, unless he moves first. In 290 BCE, he begins his western campaign, not with war, but with presence. Naval fleets dock in Carthage. Phoenician traders are welcomed into imperial markets. North Africa becomes part of the imperial trade spine. Carthaginian merchants are given Babylonian coin. Carthage doesn't fall. It becomes dependent. Then come the Western Isles, Sicily, Sardinia, all brought under the peace of Alexander. And finally, the Italian peninsula. Rome expects attack. Instead, they receive diplomacy. Brilliant, layered, undeniable. The emperor offers citizenship to Roman elites. He sends Greek philosophers to teach in Roman forms. He funds aqueducts, roads, theaters. Rome's youth learn Homer. Its generals quote Aristotle. Its elders warn. This is not peace. This is conquest without sword. And they're right. A few resist. Rebellions flare in the Alps. A Roman tribune calls for independence. He is exiled, but Rome doesn't fall in fire. It is absorbed, its gods renamed, its senate kept as a ceremonial body. its people slowly woven into the imperial fabric. By 275 BCE, the Roman Republic still exists, but its identity, blurry. It speaks Greek, worships Alexander as a divine ancestor, and trades not with Carthage, but through it. This Western shift completes something extraordinary. Alexander, now in his 70s, has done the impossible. He has created a world where conflict is not eradicated, but redirected, where rising powers are not destroyed, but repurposed. A world empire without a single culture, but with a single vision. His vision, but all is not perfect. Gaul, tribes whisper of their ancestors. In Hispania, old songs are sung in caves. In Germania, scouts report strange new warlords gathering under sacred oaks. They do not want roads, or schools, or Greek gods. They want resistance, and Alexander knows he will not live forever. But perhaps his world can, if he makes it strong enough, if he makes it unbreakable. It is 283 BCE. Alexander is 80. The man who once charged into battle on horseback now walks with a staff carved from wood taken from the banks of the Ganges. His eyes are clouded, but his voice unshaken. He addresses his final assembly in Babylon, a council of Persians, Greeks, Nubians, Phoenicians, Indians, Celts. He looks upon them not as subjects, but as the blueprint of his greatest ambition, a world empire, not of conquest, but of continuity. And what a world it is! From the Scottish highlands to the Himalayan passes, coins bear his name. A single calendar binds the seasons. A single language bridges law, trade, and diplomacy. 1,000 dialects still echo through markets, but in every court, Greek is spoken. Even the oceans have bowed. Alexandrian fleets map the western Atlantic and southern African coasts. A lighthouse stands at Gibraltar. A great library rises in Babylon, dwarfing the one in Alexandria. It contains every known scroll from India to Gaul, and one inscription carved into its entrance. Let no knowledge die, but for all its brilliance, cracks have begun to show. In Gaul, rebellion stirs, not because of suffering, but because of memory. Elders pass on tales of old kings and free forests. In Bactria, resentment brews as governors impose taxes for wars no one remembers. And in Egypt, a new prophet preaches that no man, not even Alexander, is immortal. The emperor knows it, too. His body weakens. He no longer climbs his beloved towers. He no longer rides, but he still commands, still signs edicts, still believes. And as his health fades, a final question haunts him. Will it last? He has prepared a succession council, no single heir, but a league of stewards trained in every province. Each swears loyalty to the vision, not the man. But history is cruel, and men forget. When Alexander finally dies peacefully, surrounded by his wives, children, and scholars, the world holds its breath. In Babylon, mourning bells ring for 7 days. In Athens, temples remain closed. In India, candles float across the Ganges. And in Rome, people cry, not because he was their conqueror, but because he was their emperor. For a time, things hold. The world doesn't fall apart overnight. Trade continues. Roads remain open. Armies stay loyal. But without him, without the idea of him, the weight begins to shift. Governors seek more power. Old identities reawaken. Religions return with renewed fervor. And borders, long erased, start to flicker back into place. The empire doesn't collapse in flames. It frays, like cloth pulled too tight. Still, something remains. In future centuries, children in Gaul recite Homer. In China, astrologers consult scrolls copied from Babylon. In Africa, stories are told of a man who ruled the sun and the sea. Alexander never conquered the world. He changed it, and perhaps that was more powerful. Because in this world that never was, we glimpse something both terrifying and beautiful. That one man, given time, might have held it all together, not with the sword, but with the dream. What if Alexander the Great had lived to 80? We watched a fevered king survive in Babylon and rise to reclaim destiny. We followed his footsteps as he crossed Arabia, re-entered India, and glimpsed the vast horizons of China. We saw not a conqueror, but a unifier, a visionary who built bridges, not walls. From Babylon, Alexander forged a multicultural empire stretching across continents. He redefined rulership not by birthright, but by merit. He elevated Greek culture, not to dominate, but to bind. Rome became a province of the mind. Carthage became an economic node, and the Silk Road wasn't a trade route. It was a highway of ideas. And yet, not all could be unified. In Gaul, in Bactria, in Egypt, old fires smoldered. Resentment grew quietly beneath roads and scrolls. But still, Alexander endured. He envisioned a world not of kings and slaves, but of shared greatness. And when he died at 80, the world mourned not just a man, but a possibility. For centuries, his language, architecture, science, and spirit would ripple through empires that came after. He never conquered the world, but he built the closest thing to unity we've ever imagined. And maybe, just maybe, his greatest legacy was the question, what if we hadn't let it fall apart?